How's it going?
Good.
Mark?
Yes.
Where are we?
We are at my date ranch slash home slash packing house.
Um, and we're in Coachella?
This is actually Thermal.
Thermal?
Across the street from me is Coachella, but I'm technically in Thermal.
And how big is this property, or is this not where we grow? Is this somewhere else? This is just your
So
home?
we grow a little bit here. It's 1 acre, and then we have another parcel a little bit deeper into Thermal that's got much more trees on it.
How many trees are we talking?
We've got about 1,500.
And is that, in the grand scheme of things, is that like on the world cultivation scale, is that really big, or is that medium? Is it small? Because I don't know much about
It's
the
pretty
dates.
small. I mean, I'd say it's pretty boutique, right? So, plus or minus 1,000 trees could produce a couple 100,000 pounds, depending on the variety. So we've got multiple varietals planted out there, different colors, shapes, textures, and I would say, for a big to be classified as maybe even medium or big, we're talking 10,000 trees plus.
Where else in the world are they growing dates and palms and all that?
So here in the United States, the Coachella Valley grows 90% of the dates in the United States, right?
Wow.
But they're also growing in Arizona, Mexico, Israel, Tunisia, Egypt, Morocco. There's a couple of farms that have popped up in Peru and Thailand even. So it's kind of all across the board. Again, depending on varietal and region.
Mostly desert climates. Is that what we're dealing with?
I would say that the vast majority is desert, but there's been some people that have been tinkering with some different varieties of dates in more subtropical climates.
Have you ever heard of anybody growing indoors as far as just to maybe speed up the process? Is that even a thing?
So they do tissue culture, where they'll propagate the trees indoors. It's a faster way to produce more trees that can be planted. But as far as growing the palms themselves indoors for fruit, I have not heard of that. Not yet.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think they'd get a little bit too big to be able to pull that off.
So how big do these get? I mean, full-on palm trees, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, these things can get 30, 40 feet and still be producing plenty of fruit.
And so what's behind us? What are we looking at? Like 8 feet? As far
Behind us, we've probably got, that's roughly about a 12 to 15 footer.
So you count it from the palms down to the
From about the heart, the center.
So what is the heart then? How does that work?
So the heart is what's in between the fronds themselves. That's where the heart of the palm is and where the tree grows from. So it grows from the inside out.
And people actually eat heart of palm, right? I've heard of that. Is that a thing?
They do. It's not typically from date palms. That typically comes from coconut palms or other varietals of palms. Same thing with the oil. Palm oil comes from those, and those are definitely grown in subtropical climates.
You were saying off camera earlier that they're actually a form of weed.
Yeah, so palms are technically classified as a weed, and they're really intelligent trees. They seek out water. Their root systems are pretty hardy, and the tree itself grows just about anywhere. But it's whether or not it's fruit bearing or fruit producing that can make the difference from a climate perspective.
Is that like a male or female type thing with plants, or how does that work? Just
The
quick.
ones that produce fruit are female, and the ones that produce the pollen are male. So a male tree can pollinate up to 50 females. So a lot of ranches have males planted on their ranch, and then will harvest the pollen from those male trees and take that pollen and hand pollinate the female flowers.
How does a hand pollination work?
It's almost like this little puffer where our guys go up into the trees and pollinate the flowers as they're growing from the tree. And it's a very tedious process.
Such an interesting process. It sounds like. I wonder how they figured that out one day. I mean, I'm sure this has been going on for millennia, growing these things. I mean, do you know the origins of the first time that someone like developed,
There's been references to palms and palm fruit dating all the way back to BC.
biblical
Right.
times and prior?
So it's considered by some to be one of the oldest fruits in the world.
Wow. And I did a little bit of research, just quite a bit, because I actually wanted to learn from you, so I didn't want to do too much. But it's basically like a superfood. Is that a thing?
Yeah, so dates are on the are on the cusp of being classified as a superfood, and it's kind of interesting, and there's a lot of science behind this, right? So we have the research that says dates are high in fiber, they're low in glycemic index, they have a certain type of antioxidant that helps fight free radicals in the body, right? So it checks all of those different items off of the list, but to be able to go out and promote it on packaging, you need to have backing by the FDA and the USDA.
All the clinical, the
all
things
the
that,
clinical
yeah,
trials.
exactly, yeah, which keeps a lot of people out of big business.
Yeah, so the California Date Commission has done a phenomenal job of going out and really seeking that approval, and we're definitely in the process, and we've gotten some approvals on some really cool things that dates do. The American Heart Association has come out and recommend people eat 7 dates a day. We've got some really interesting stuff to back that these are good sugars as opposed to bad sugars. We know what the antioxidants are that are in them. We know what they do, right? So it's just still kind of finalizing that process where we can say, okay, these antioxidants do this, and this is why it's good for you. We know that dates are really high in potassium, right? Which is kind of cool because it's one of the best kept secrets of endurance athletes are dates, right? Potassium helps your body with cramping. The sugars, since they're good sugars, they fuel your body, right? All of these different pieces of dates prove that they are a superfood, but it's lumping them all together and being able to make that claim that we haven't really been able to do yet.
So when you're able to make a claim like that, does that mean more business, or what does that mean to you and to the industry of dates?
I think it's interesting, right? We're marketing dates on a national and kind of global platform, and obviously everything helps. Getting people to understand that just because it's sweet doesn't mean it's bad for you is clearly a hurdle that once we can cross that as an industry, we should be able to see an uptick in sales, right? People immediately associate sweet things with bad things,
Yes.
whether it's corn syrup or sugars or desserts or ice creams or any of these components that we consume on a regular basis that are sugar. Sugar is bad. Sugar is bad for you. It's bad for your kids. It's bad for everything that you do. And when somebody bites into something sweet, they immediately think it's sugar. But this is natural. And as low on the glycemic index as it is, it makes a tremendous difference on how your body actually processes that sugar.
Do you feed your family? I mean, I'm sure you do with dates as well, or is it kind of like you guys are sick of them by now? I'm just being,
I
frank.
eat some almost every day.
Okay.
When my son was teething, we started feeding him dates, which was interesting because if you put dates in the freezer, they never completely freeze.
Oh, wow.
Because they're so low in moisture to begin with. So we would freeze dates and give them to him when he was teething, and he still loves them. I mean, he'll go out into the packing house and grab a handful. His sister, who's 1 now, she is teething currently and munching on dates every chance she can get. My wife eats them. She ate them all through her pregnancy. There's been some interesting studies. Again, these are independent studies that say that when you eat dates when you're pregnant, it actually helps with the birthing process.
Wow.
Right? So, there's all these interesting things about dates, but again, it's kind of compiling all of that data, which as an industry we're working very diligently on.
And where did you learn the business?
My father. So my father came here. He was an immigrant from Egypt, and he immigrated to Canada. And then from Canada, he came down here to the Coachella Valley, and he has a agricultural and horticultural degree, and found all of these date palms out here, which are a lot of them are native to the region that he grew up in.
Yeah, because I've lived in the desert most of my life, and I remember when I first moved out here as a child, people would say, these palm trees are not natural, unless I'm misinformed, like they were brought here from somewhere else. Is that not true?
It is true. So a lot of the palm trees that we have out here were brought from the Middle East.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right, so they were brought over by shipping container way, way back in the 40s. And there were a couple of pioneers that went out and said, you know what, let's put these things in the ground and see what happens.
What do you think it was? What were they thinking doing that? I mean, I'm just curious.
I think it was probably a correlation of climates, right? Desert and desert, right? So the Middle East is known for having a vast desert, We're known here in the Coachella Valley for having a vast desert. We have really good water rights. So it was probably just that small little correlation.
What's the process of uprooting one of these trees? And like if you were to bring one from Egypt to, let's say thermal, how would you do that?
So there's offshoots that grow at the base of palm trees. So they look like little palm trees growing out of the base of a big palm tree. So it's a pretty tedious, labor-intensive process, but that's what we do. We remove them from the mother tree with part of the root system and take those offshoots, as they're called, and plant them in the ground, and then those eventually turn into the big palms that we have around here.
And being that it's a weed, it almost takes instantly.
As long as it's removed properly, it's given the right water, it's removed at the right time of year, right? You don't want it to be too cold, you don't want it to be too hot. You can pot them or you can put them straight in the ground, but yeah, that root system's pretty clever.
And nutrients, is that a thing as well?
It's interesting. Some people, are very scientific about the way that they grow their dates, right? Soil samples, and we give this amount and that amount, and we add this and we add that, and I think that's great. It's not really what we do, just because my father's been growing this fruit for so long. It's we're not trying to rewrite what's been working.
Exactly.
So far, what's been working. Occasionally we'll add some fertilizer into our field and onto our trees, and we take the palm fronds and disc them back into the ground. Those break down and kind of add a little bit more.
The way God intended, yeah. Pretty much, yeah, right?
We even take some of our fruit that we don't pack, and we'll put that in the ground as well.
Okay, and it breaks up, and then it fuels itself.
Correct.
Which is great, which I'm sure saves money too on that end, right? As far as compost and all the other stuff, it's like a self-contained plant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
awesome.
a firm believer in compost. I think it's awesome. I just don't have a place to facilitate it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not as of yet. I hope to one day, because I think that that's really the best way to add nutrients back into these trees is to compost what you're not using.
Yeah.
Right? Turn it into fuel for the trees, and then the trees turn the fruit into fuel for our bodies, and everybody's happy.
It's a continuous cycle, so pretty
Circle of
awesome,
life.
yeah. So how did we get into I'm going to do a big jump. How did we get into from, the humble beginnings with your father and in the business to now wanting to do your festival?
It's interesting. Like I'd mentioned before, we're doing a pretty big push as an industry, right? Where we're trying to differentiate California dates from others. And I do believe that there are differences, right? Out here in California, we have sunshine, we have perfect weather, we've got, all of the components to really have a very valuable and important product that comes out of the Coachella Valley. And I wanted something that circled around the harvest to celebrate dates, right? And more dates than anything else, right? So the initial concept of this festival came from my partner and I. We were talking at one point in time about doing a harvest dinner, right? Her and I have worked together for a really long time on marketing. Michelle Tully. So she's a phenomenal marketeer. She's a phenomenal designer and photographer. So we did a lot of work together, and we had always thought that doing a harvest dinner would be something kind of special. And I realized that there was an opportunity for something a little bit bigger, something that was on a bigger platform. Here in the Coachella Valley, we're known for festivals, which is phenomenal. I mean,
the city of festivals, yeah.
Yeah, the infrastructure that Golden Voice and Empire have built here in the Coachella Valley is second to none, right? Here we are, this really cool desert out in Southern California, and we have some of the coolest and best festivals in the world, right? It's phenomenal to look at the growth of that, and now the amount of people that are here in the Coachella Valley that can help facilitate putting on a festival, right? So I felt like dates could really have a special home here in the Coachella Valley, on the east end of the Coachella Valley, where the dates are grown, right? And be able to promote them on a local level, which is something I think that we're missing as an industry, right? I think that a lot of times we're too focused on how far away we can ship the product, as opposed to how we can facilitate growth from the area that we're in, right? Having this foundation to this bigger piece of marketing and promoting our product on a national and international level. So that's kind of how the idea came about.
So you're going to have bands there, and how many stages are you going to be having?
It's just one stage,
One stage.
and we'll have music all day, live music all day. Then we're going to have a smaller stage for some culinary demos, right? We've got some really cool people from the Food Network coming out to do some cooking with dates. Then we're going to have a tractor display from RDO, John Deere Tractors, for people to come and take pictures with and climb on. The city of Coachella has graciously donated a Ferris wheel for the event.
Wow.
So that we can have free rides for families all day long on the Ferris wheel. We're going to have booths for date sellers, and we're calling it Date Dealers Row, right? So we're going to have a bunch of date dealers lined up, sampling and selling up to 20 varieties of dates.
Wow. I didn't realize that there's so many varieties of dates.
Yeah, and then on top of all of that, we've put together a list of food vendors that is just insane. I mean, sometimes I look at this list and I'm shocked that we pulled it all together. Everything from Spicy Pie, who's a festival favorite, to Dad's Barbecue, their championship barbecue team, to an artisan cotton candy company out of Las Vegas, right? And they're all going to do a date-related menu item.
How long have you been planning? Because I know it does take quite a bit of time to one, book the acts, two, find the venue, three, get everybody else ready to go. How long have you been thinking of this?
We hit the ground running in February, but it's been a seed in my brain that's been germinating for a lot longer than that.
I'm sure, again, being here and then right down the way, you can hear Coachella happening from here too. So it's just not to say that's where where it came from, but just the fact that you said you're inspired by Polo and Coachella doing their thing. It's like, why can't you have your thing? Because it's such a staple in the community. I mean, we're famous for our dates, and it's because of you. Right?
Well, we're famous for our dates, and we're famous for our festivals, so it's a perfect marriage, right?
Totally.
And I love Coachella Fest. I love Stagecoach. I love what it's done for our community. I was born and raised here, right? What they've managed to do for this community is really impressive and important. Right, I mean the infrastructure that it's brought, the jobs that it's created, the things that they've done for the Coachella Valley are it's a game changer, right? And technically, it's in the east end of the Coachella Valley, right, which was a place that not a lot of people would visit.
Yeah, they would visit, downtown and Frank Sinatra and the whole deal, Rat Pack. But now, like you said, on the east end.
Yeah, now people are venturing out this way, and I'd like them to venture a little bit further. I'd like them to come to agriculture. There's this visceral reaction that people have when they interact with their food, right? It's a level of trust. It's a heightened sense of awareness when you're out here actually touching, feeling, smelling what your food is. And these palm trees, in my opinion, I've told people this before, they're ugly and beautiful at the same time. They're not the same kind of palm trees you're going to find in downtowns throughout the Coachella Valley, right? These are a hardier tree. They're a beefier tree. They genuinely produce food. And it's important that people have the opportunity to come out and experience that.
I was watching a little video of one of your edits, and you have this little hook thing. I mean, what is that called when you slice it off? It was this cool little like Captain Hook looking hand.
Yeah,
thing.
It's a machete.
But it must have. I mean, it was on a glove. It looked like.
Yeah.
And it must have been. I mean, I don't know how sharp that is because they just hit it with one little swipe, and I'm sure those are pretty hard to cut down.
They are pretty hard to cut down. So they have the glove on them, that leather glove, to protect.
So it's a grip.
It's to protect the hand from the thorns.
Okay.
Right. So the fronds from date palms produce some pretty gnarly thorns. I mean, these things used to be used for suturing needles by Native Americans. Right. So these are pretty hardcore. So that part of the machete helps protect the hand because we do with that machete not only cut the fronds, but we also dethorn the trees so that we have the ability to reach into the tree and pollinate it and thin it and tie the bunches and sack the bunches, right? So the first step on all of this is to take the thorns off.
Do they grow back after you do that, or you have to?
They don't.
They don't. So once it's like declawing a cat or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Once it's gone.
And it goes back to how clever palm trees are. Right, they're a very intelligent plant. Those thorns are there to protect them, right? So from birds trying to go and eat the fruit, or from animals that are trying to climb up into the tree, here are these thorns that are actually protecting the fruit that the tree grows.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's almost like an alien or something. It's just got this whole life, and it's it knows more than we do. I'm sure it's been around longer.
Yeah,
It's pretty crazy.
which
Yeah.
is cool, and that's also, I mean, it harkens back to why am I doing this thing with this festival, right? The more people learn about these trees and about this industry that we have here in the Coachella Valley, the better it is for all of us, right? It heightens the awareness, and that's what we want. Is we want people to know what we're growing, why we're growing it, where it is, how we grow it, right? And then once we tie in the community, it'll expand from there, right? And we've tied in a lot of pieces of the community to this festival, right? We've got a veterans charity that's coming out, and they're setting up Mission Veteran. It's a local charity, right? Edward Robles is the head of this charity. He's the founder of this charity. He's coming out and setting up a recreation and resource tent for veterans where they can come in that day for free and sign up for the VA or for Mission Vet that does music therapy for veterans.
So great.
Right? And that'll be there at the festival. We've got Find Food Bank. Every ticket we sell, we're donating 5 meals to Find Food Bank. Right? We have done a pre-sale drive with, and we've opened this up across the Coachella Valley for nonprofits, where they can go and sell these tickets at pre-sale prices, which is $20 for everything that we talked about, right? Which is a lot of cool stuff for a day.
Totally.
And they can go sell these tickets and keep $10 of every ticket that they sell. That's including Desert Sands Unified, their educational foundation. So Desert Sands is going to be able to raise money in conjunction with raising awareness for a product that we grow out here. It's kind of a win-win. I'm genuinely anticipating by the time this one-day festival is over, we're going to raise $50,000 or $60,000 for local charities.
Yeah, and again, hadn't you did this, your brainchild, then this would have never happened. This is so amazing. Can we tell people where to find like your website or your Instagram, or how they can follow you, or figure out
Absolutely.
where to go? I mean, you can tell one of these cameras here where to go.
We are at Date Harvest Fest on Instagram and Facebook, and our website is www.dateharvestfest.com. All of those places have places to click and buy tickets. And then also there's tons of nonprofits all up and down the Coachella Valley with hard tickets that can be purchased through them, and I encourage everybody to do that.
Thank you so much, Mark, for sitting down with us. And you
Thank
have
you.
a beautiful home. This is really great. I'm sure it's nice to wake up in the morning and be surrounded by these, beautiful weeds. but it's great, and it fuels your life, and people are going to get hip to it, and we support what you're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Right on.
It's great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.